I'm tracking another round of much-needed rain when widespread showers move in.
Your property taxes are in a power struggle. Coming up, we have what state leaders are trying to do to fix it, while counties are worried your services could be cut.
Murph, money is changing college athletics in so many ways.
We've seen it this week. The NCAA considering expanding the basketball tournament, changing its amateurism rules, and redefining eligibility.
Let's talk about it all on Murph.
Lots to talk about. Are we going to pay even more in property taxes? Is that going to happen? Do people trust our elections? And can we just force the clouds to give us some rain? All questions we plan to answer here tonight on WRAL News at 7 o'clock. And I know you have thoughts on all of this stuff. Your emails lead to many of these stories. So please keep joining the conversation. Send us an email, 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. First up tonight, another round of rain is on the way this week. Here's the radar as we see it right now. Come tomorrow night, we are going to see some widespread rain. The question we're hoping to answer with this story, Kat, is will the rain put a dent in this drought?
It'll take a step in the right direction, but we're not exactly taking big jumps forward or strides forward. We'd need a ton of rain to do that. For some of us, over a foot in a month. A 70% chance for rain, though. It's pretty good news tomorrow night into Thursday. We'll take what we can get. We did bump up rain chances a bit during the day tomorrow. It's all as this cold front moves in from the northwest. Tomorrow during the late morning hours, there could be some scattered showers, primarily in the northern part of our viewing area through about lunchtime. That'll move out. We get a break from the rain during the afternoon. The evening, maybe a stray storm, but this is really what we're focused in on. Rain chances begin to climb tomorrow night, likely after 10 p.m. And this would be an overnight rain. Some rumbles of thunder will be possible while you're sleeping as well. I'll have a closer look at how long it lingers into Thursday and how much rain we could see coming up, Dan.
All right, Kat, thank you. So a pretty big update here in the push to change how our property tax system works. Today, the North Carolina Senate passed a bill, and this puts a pause on using new property valuations to increase property taxes. Basically, they're buying time here, making sure the taxes don't increase while lawmakers look at the broader changes to the system. The thing is, at the same time, Wake County is making plans to increase property taxes. WRAL State Government reporter Caroline Yaffa is here to help us understand how all of these plans fit together.
Behind these doors, a Senate bill advanced a couple of hours ago, and there's another proposal in the House that could limit how much counties can generate revenue through property taxes. Now, this could make it very difficult for counties to provide essential services.
Take Wake County. Wake leaders say financial support from the state hasn't kept up with growing needs in a growing county. Wake County says it's covering nearly $600 million in funding gaps left by the state. And the numbers show just how much the county is relying on local taxpayers. $2.17 billion in general fund revenue. About $1.62 billion of that comes from property taxes. Wake leaders say if the state provided more money for things like public safety and social services, the county's property tax rate actually drop by 19 cents. Instead, the county says it'll have to raise property taxes by about 2 cents for every $100 in assessed property value to keep services running. For a $450,000 home, that's $90 more per year. County leaders warn if lawmakers don't chip in more state money, cuts could be next. State leaders want to limit how much local governments can raise property taxes, pinching counties' ability to collect money for services. The Senate plan would allow tax increases, but it would put newer and likely higher property appraisals on hold. And the House is pursuing a cap on property taxes.
The Senate's property tax bill is expected to be voted on tomorrow, and if it passes, it will head over to the House. Caroline Yaffa, WRAL News, Raleigh.
Okay, so we just threw a lot at you there in a pretty short amount of time. So let's quickly just recap some of what Caroline just explained there, where Wake County gets its money and how the county spends that money. And I'm going to throw up a couple of pie charts at you. Pie charts are great. They help us understand things. So this is number one. This shows Wake County's revenue sources. That big blue slice there, that 75%, that comes from property taxes. It's a big old chunk of it. Of the county's $2.1 billion in revenue, a little over $1.5 billion come from property taxes. Pie chart number 2. This shows how Wake County spends that money. The biggest piece of the pie is that one, again, shaded in blue. That's 36%, and that goes to education, to Wake County Public Schools. The next biggest piece, shaded light blue, is debt, and the vast majority of that debt is paying for education. So whether it's going to operating costs or paying down debt, a huge chunk of Wake County's revenue, about $1 billion, goes to learning, to education. And this doesn't even include the money coming from the state. That's a whole other bucket of cash and a bunch of other pie charts. But this takes us to an important follow-up question. It's a question that we get all the time in the 7 p.m. inbox. I could roll through like a dozen emails, but tonight we'll stick with just one from Brian. He asks, where is the highly touted education lottery funding in all of this? It is a fair question, and again, one we get a lot. Before we talk about the answer, remember what you just heard, that Wake County brought in $1.6 billion in property tax revenue last year and spent about $1 billion on education alone. Okay, here's the breakdown of North Carolina's education lottery. Last year, the lottery paid out $1 billion to schools. That is 16% of the lottery's total revenue. But that is not $1 billion for one county. That is $1 billion for 100 counties. And Wake County's slice of that pie was $64 million. See, the education lottery isn't here to save the day. It never was. It's just not big enough to make that kind of a difference, which should explain to you just how much money we're talking about here, how much it takes to run a state like this, to run education. I'm wondering what you think about all of it. You know, I'm thinking about doing a proper kind of in-depth piece on all of this because there's so much to talk about. I mean, the fact is, none of us, no one likes paying taxes. And right now, many people feel like they can't afford them. Some lawmakers say we can't afford not to raise taxes. And then you have the other lawmakers who are saying, well, that's not true. We could find ways to save. And, you know, in the end, I think we're going to feel the real cost of property tax, either in our bank accounts or in our community. You know, what does that look like? What's that pie chart? What's your pie chart look like? Give me some follow-up questions on this one. Send me an email, 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. Send us your questions, comments, your feedback. When it comes to things like education funding, property taxes, or the lottery, or just your bottom line. I know a lot of people feel like their bank accounts don't stretch as far as they used to. Tell me what's on your mind. We'll talk about it right here at 7 o'clock. Let's get to a story happening right now at 7, a shooting that was reported in Durham. Now appears to have been a drive-by. That's the information we're getting. Brian Schrader on top of this in the WRAL Live Center. Brian.
Brand new information here at 7 o'clock, Dan. A man is in the hospital after a drive-by at a Durham cemetery. Show you where this investigation has been unfolding over the past couple of hours out at Moorhead Avenue and Chapel Hill Road. I want to show you some video from Sky 5 that we shot right around 6 o'clock, and you can see all of that police activity there at the corner. They say just before 5 o'clock, a passenger in a moving vehicle shot a man there, and they found that man with gunshot wounds. He has been taken to the hospital with serious injuries, and at this point, that is all the information Durham police have released. We're working to get more details.
Thank you, Brian. 2026 is, of course, an election year. The primaries, you remember they wrapped up in March. We got the general election coming up in November. Get ready for, all the attack ads and the mean tweets and all that stuff, as well as some more conversations about election security. You might already have an opinion on this topic, but before you go ahead and send me your thoughts, consider some of the new polling that just came out on this. And it turns out lots of people think we have some work to do when it comes to the trust in our elections. Here's WRAL State Government reporter Paul Spey.
How much do voters trust North Carolina elections? Well, let's just say many remain skeptical. A recent poll by Opinion Diagnostics asked more than 800 people about the state's elections. 31% said the state's elections are becoming less trustworthy. 15% said it's becoming more trustworthy, and 44% said their trust remains the same. Now, voters are concerned about several issues. 75% said they're concerned about cyber attacks affecting the results. Nearly 2/3 are worried that election officials won't follow the right procedures when they're counting ballots, and just over half of North Carolina Carolinians are concerned about non-citizens voting in elections, which officials admit is extremely rare. These results come a year after control of the state elections board shifted from Democratic to Republican control, and that board last year hired Sam Hayes as its new executive director. I asked Hayes, what can the elections board do to gain the public's trust?
Well, I've said from the very beginning that we're going to follow the law, and we have stuck to that. And I don't know any better way to build trust with the electorate.
I asked Hayes about that list of concerns that voters have to prevent cyber attacks. Hayes said the board is upgrading its information management system. It's also important to remember our state's ballot tabulators are not connected to the internet. To see if any non-citizens are registered to vote, the board is uploading a bunch of voter information to a federal database, which is its own can of worms. Nearly 70% of voters said the federal government should have limited involvement in elections. Hayes pointed to the March primaries as evidence that poll workers are pretty good about following election procedures. Recounts in several races, including a top state lawmaker's primary loss, yielded no major disruptions or administrative issues.
All right, thank you to Paul. It is all about trust. Look, it might be the offseason for college football and basketball, but the NCAA is keeping busy. Talks of a 76-team tournament, eligibility based on age, and making some money before even coming to campus. A lot to talk about next on Murph's Turf. Plus another episode of Drought Daily for you. Some of you thinking we should try something called cloud seeding. Let's find out if that would actually work. I feel like we're saying this once every couple of weeks at this point, but college sports is changing. More change actually might be on the way. Have you been keeping up with all the headlines out of the NCAA recently? Talks of expanding the NCAA tournament, allowing cash prizes in some competitions, and enforcing an age limit so athletes can't stick around forever. Ashley Rowe got some insight down at Murph's Turf.
Murph, there are so many storylines coming out of the NCAA. It really does seem like now that money is being injected into college athletics, the NCAA has a lot to figure out. Let's first start with now possible expansion of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, the men's and women's basketball tournaments, which drive all of the revenue for the NCAA, they're talking about expanding those from 68 to 76. Now, it's important to note the NCAA tournament has always been expanding, right? It only went to 64 in 1985, then it went to 65, now 68. Now they're talking about getting to 76, in part because teams are investing a lot of money in these basketball rosters, and they don't want to be left out of the only part of college basketball season that truly matters, March Madness.
Right. Reese Brentmeyer, a local athlete at UNC. There's been a long fight. You and I have talked about this. She sued the NCAA because she wanted to get prize money from a tournament that she was in before she got to UNC. She won that lawsuit, and now we know how much money she made in that lawsuit, too.
Yeah, NCAA is going to pay a $2 million settlement. Brantmeyer and Maya Joint, who's the other named plaintiff in the class action suit, are going to get $10,000 plus the opportunity to get some of the money that they had to forfeit to retain their NCAA eligibility. What this really is about amateurism. We used to know kind of what amateurism meant in the NCAA, but when your quarterback's getting paid $7 million a year and schools are allowed to directly pay athletes, well, everything that deals with amateurism has changed. The NCAA has agreed to allow players in all sports to accept money before they enroll in college. So that means tennis players, golfers, maybe even basketball players will be paid to play in some of these AAU tournaments now. That'll be perfectly legal.
Wow. And while we're on the topic of student athletes, that could be changing too as far as eligibility goes.
Yeah, the NCAA keeps losing these lawsuits over eligibility. They try to put in standards, but people are challenging those in state courts all across the country. We just saw the Ole Miss quarterback get a 6th year of eligibility. We saw Diego Pavia, the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, get extra years of eligibility. The NCAA looks at it as an age-based limit, and parents are very familiar with that. Kids growing up play in an 8U league or a 10U league or a 14U league. And that way, the NCAA says it's a consistent standard across the board. They don't have to worry about all these lawsuits that they're getting hit with. By the time you're 23, you would be done with college athletics, and that would make room for the next class of high school athletes coming up.
Obviously, the folks who are vying for those 6-year options on eligibility, they probably don't love this. But what's the overall reaction been to that?
Well, I think everyone expects it to get challenged immediately in court because think about it. If you're a sixth-year guy, you're probably collecting a huge NIL paycheck or a huge revenue share paycheck, and that opportunity may go away. So this will be challenged in court like everything the NCAA does. Now, Donald Trump's executive order called on the NCAA to institute this 5 years of eligibility rule. So they're trying to follow the executive order as well. A lot of competing interests right now.
Wow, no kidding. Murph, appreciate it. Thank you.
From the turf to the drought, as we have another episode of Drought Daily, the segment where we take your questions about the drought and all the other stuff that comes along with it. We try to do our best to answer things. We've gotten a lot of this lately. Sharon writing in and saying, we have a drought in North Carolina that is predicted to get worse. What happened to cloud seeding? Wouldn't that be beneficial? So I should start by saying that cloud seeding is a thing. This is real. This is not some science fiction, crackpot, tinfoil hat theory, nothing like that. Cloud seeding is scientific. It's been around for decades, and it works in some ways. We'll explain. Particles in this process are forced into a storm cloud to help it produce rain, typically a chemical called silver iodide. That's what they use. And this only works if a storm is already present and growing. You can't create a new storm using this technique. And like I said, scientists have been studying this for a while. This is a picture from 1947 during the very first cloud seeding experiment. The Storm Fury program did cloud seeding tests for decades, mostly on hurricanes. After finding, though, that the technique likely had no significant impact on the storms, the Storm Fury program was canceled. Now, since then, cloud seeding technology has been used on a smaller scale, improving rainfall in drought-stricken areas. A company in Texas, for instance, does this. It's enough to increase rainfall, they say, by about a centimeter. Nowhere near enough to produce a flood.
There are ways that you can influence the weather, but you can't control weather systems. You can't make a flood here or a drought there. That's not possible, not with today's technology.
So despite all of this, North Carolina lawmakers still passed a bill last year banning cloud seeding in our state. And we checked, there are no recorded examples of the government or private companies or anybody ever trying it out here in North Carolina. So to Sharon's question, could it help? Well, think of it this way. We need about 10 to 15 inches of rain to get out of this drought. So it is highly unlikely that even if it was allowed to be done here, that any amount of cloud seeding would make a significant dent in that. So keep sending those drought questions. Didn't see your question asked this time around. That's okay, no problem. We're going to be doing this for a while, longer than we'd like, to be honest with you, because the drought is probably sticking around for a bit. We got a long way to go before this is all over. So tune in next time for another episode of Drought Daily. Kat.
You know, I gotta say, I've been looking into, a lot of people have been asking about tropical systems. You know, could that bring us out of the drought? One thing to think of while we're thinking of that is that, you know, you can get too much rain all at once in a flood, and then the ground can't soak it all up. So we've got a lot of different things that we're looking at with this drought. I do have encouraging news. We've got a little rain tomorrow morning. There could be a couple of showers at the bus stop in the morning. These would mainly be from the Triangle and points north through about lunchtime. And then during the afternoon, it's likely to be dry as the kids head home, 82 degrees and breezy. But we're talking about rain. It's a step in the right direction. And there could be a couple of spots that really luck out with totals between about half an inch and an inch. It's not going to be uniform, though, in our area. It's not like the entire map is going to have a big blob on it of an inch of rain or anything like that. There's going to be some rainfall winners and losers with this setup. We got to talk about how badly we need the rain. We've seen about half of the rain that's normal for the year so far, and about a third of normal rainfall for spring so far. Both are holding the record for the driest year to date and spring to date on record. We start out with a little bit of rain tomorrow morning. This isn't going to be a whole lot or add up to much in your rain gauge, but tomorrow night is when we're going to have the better chance of rain and even some storms. And this could add up. We go up to a 70% chance of rain tomorrow night into Thursday morning. Thursday morning, likely starting out with some rain for the morning commute. We're keeping an eye on how heavy it is and how widespread it is, so check in for an update on that tomorrow. But if we do see rain that's pretty good in coverage on the radar during the morning, that'll help to limit any severe weather potential during the afternoon. At this point, we still have storms in the forecast Thursday afternoon and evening with a low-end chance that a few could be strong or severe. Let's take a look at Fenton. A beautiful night in Cary. 79 degrees right now. Wind out of the south at about 10 to 15 miles per hour. It's breezy, but it's a nice night if you want to head out for a quick evening walk before you are in for the night. A couple of days of rain chances, but not a washout tomorrow. Once we get to Friday, we get a break. Just small rain chances for now for the weekend. At this point, I would not cancel any of your outdoor plans. Check in for an update tomorrow because those are new trends, Dan.
All right, Kat, thank you. Hey, don't go anywhere. We got an update from the Live Center. It's our one last thing, plus some of your feedback. Tonight's one last thing comes from the Live Center. Brian, another update on the Strait of Hormuz.
Indeed. Project Freedom, which is the U.S. operation to guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz, is on pause. President Trump just posted on Truth Social that the blockade is going to remain in full force and effect, but Project Freedom is going to be paused for a short period of time, he says, to try to determine if they can come to a final agreement with Iran. As you know, hundreds of ships right now are in the Persian Gulf trying to get safe passage through that strait.
Got it, Brian. Thank you. Some quick feedback from some of you at home tonight. Got a bunch of emails like this. I'm going to read the one we got from Julie. She says, why does such a small amount of the lottery go to education? It seems like 16% is a very small amount. And again, a couple of people asked this. It's a fair question. Well, the other 84% goes to all the other stuff. Actually, putting on the lottery, for one, that costs money to do. Plus, you have all the winners, right? So that also, that 84% is the money that is being paid out to the people who are winning the lottery. If you want to change that percentage, you got to change the rules and the law. So it's all written in there. But yeah, that 84% goes to putting on the lottery and paying it out. 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. We will answer your questions even during the show. Keep them coming.